Hello and welcome to the Above Board podcast. As usual, I am Paul Jarvis and I am joined by my co-founder, Jack Ellis. Hello. This is the last recording of the year, although the previous one was going to be the last recording, but some stuff happened. So we're doing one more episode in 2023. And if you're listening to this in like 2030, then it honestly doesn't matter. But we figured we would jump on the mics today because we just released something in our software and wanted to talk about it.
Yeah, it'd be rude not to, I think.
Yeah. So I guess technically we launched 3.5 of our software. We kind of have version numbers, but we kind of don't, but we kind of always do, even though we don't. Yeah. So what did we do? What did we release? We released Compare, which was huge.
Mm-hmm.
The ability to click and unclick to remove filters. We added in date grouping so you can, for the charts, you can sort the chart by, I think, depending on the range you've selected, hourly, daily, weekly, monthly, yearly. And as well, we gave the UI a small, fresh coat of paint.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, when we can say that the UI is more similar to version 4, we're sort of taking you over a bridge to get there.
Mm-hmm.
Like that by itself, just the fresh coat of paint, having to code in CSS and structure that was never meant to support all of the new stuff we're doing. I think that, again, this is not my area, so this has all been you. It's a grind. I mean, it's working with tech debt and having to build stuff. 3.5 turned out great. And it's funny because this actually cements the end of the V3 era, because you were designing stuff in version 4 and version 3 like side by side, because the features had to be supported. This has cemented 3. Like 3 is done. This is the end. And the funny thing about the new version is it's getting not that the developers that listen care about this, but fresh CSS. You've written it from the ground up.
Yes.
And it's this whole new framework specifically for Fathom, which is going to be, it already is awesome. We're obviously working with it already.
Yeah, and it's so much easier. Like, I look at how long it took me to do the 3.5 CSS and HTML stuff, and how long it takes me to do the same in FAV4, I guess we're calling it, or FA4.
FA4, yeah.
FA4, we're going to call it. Kind of like GA4, but better in every single way.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny too, right? Because like we've been working on, and it's kind of tech debt on so many different ways, but when we started Fathom, we got V2 out pretty quick. Then we launched V3 not that long after that. And we didn't even have that many features when we launched V3, if you remember. That's right. And as we've added more features, it's become harder to work with the way that we set things up for V3. So it makes sense to kind of do we're basically reassessing with V4 now is what I'm talking about, but we're basically reassessing everything. Like, does the thing we're doing right now still make sense? Could it be done better? And is this the best and simplest and easiest for our customers' way to do it? Which has been kind of fun.
Yeah. And so 3.5 is a step over to V4, and that's what we've launched. And, there was a bunch of re-architecting queries. We had some speed issues when we first launched it because we were doing some inefficient queries. We had to fix that. That's really like 5 hours straight. That was me going through it and just recoding how the queries were done. Because I wasn't really involved in this project. I was a bit over in the corner working on V4, got involved at the last minute. It was like you and the rest of the team that got this across the finish line. And so I did a little review of it, did some query optimizations, but it's funny, I get congratulated on Twitter and I'm like, I wasn't really involved in it. I don't feel like I can take any credit. I take credit for the query speed stuff, but I didn't do the compare. I didn't do all the graph changes,
Yeah.
So it's cool.
A lot. Yeah, there was a lot of little things that went into it. And it was difficult too, I guess rewinding a couple months where it's like we know we want V4. We know V4 is coming. We
Yeah.
all want to be working on V4. And I was like, what if we do an interim release? And it's kind of like groans across the entire audience, but internally. But I think it did end up being good because that does kind of get the ball rolling, the momentum rolling. It's a bridge in terms of UI between 3 and 4, which I know a lot of times when change on UI happens, a lot of times users, especially in the beginning, don't like it because change is bad because you get used to things. And like I, as a designer, I understand it a little bit, but as like a user of software or a customer of software, it can suck sometimes where you're used to seeing something a certain way and doing something a certain way and clicking in a certain part of the screen. And then some nerds change it and you're like, what? Like, what? Yeah. So I get it, but I think we spent so much time thinking through how everything was going to work and how it needs to get closer to a certain way for the next version. And it was pretty well received, I think. Like everybody kind of, nobody, I mean, there's been a couple people who are like, I don't like this, and that's fine. Like people are allowed to have their opinions. People are allowed to, like or dislike the way things work. But if there's no, like, this now doesn't work for me because of X, then I feel like that's a success in terms of like a little redesign of something.
Any feedback we've got, I mean, I've read the feedback in terms of the design, has been solved in V4. I was going to call it Skunk, the internal code name, but has been solved in version 4. Even people saying, oh, the text is too big, which is, it's funny because then when we change back to text closer to what we had before, you're guaranteed you're going to get people saying, why did you make the text smaller? Like, it's quite funny, but version 4, I mean, this is my personal opinion. Version 4 is more refined, right? Because 3.5, as I said, you've had to work with the CSS. It looks great, but it's not the same as version 4. Version 4 just feels different.
Yeah, I mean, I pushed a square peg through a round hole and I forced it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess the other,
I swear,
the other big thing we did was raise our pricing.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Hiked the prices. Huge hikes all round. Which, what was it? Entry level plan was $1 increase.
Yeah.
Second
for the first
plan,
3
$1.
plans. Yeah.
And it's pretty much been that. So there's something happening where we're introducing extra resources for, let's say, more accurate reporting in one area. Let's just say that. More accurate, more flexible. I don't know what to call it. I don't want to reveal what we're doing. But there's going to be something introduced that everyone's going to appreciate. And that then drives up our core costs. And people, we've had a mixed response to this. Some people said, why don't you raise it way more? The thing we've done is make it so that we're not trying to price gouge indie makers and small businesses, right? It's not fair. I'm sure we could do it, but it feels wrong to do, and we don't need to do it. The actual area where we need to increase pricing is when someone's doing way more volume. That is where our margins were really small, and so we had to fix that. And the smaller plans, we smashed it. And people, you should have raised your pricing more. Well, the price raise we're doing is going to be substantial across Fathom and the volume.
Yes.
I think that's the kind of like a businessy feedback from a few entrepreneurs has been, oh, you should have raised it more. Yeah, but the goal was not to extract as much as possible from the customers. And we don't have, money's not a bottleneck to doing things right now. We're not trying to grow the team to crazy levels. And so raise the price slightly, I think, builds goodwill. I think people were very happy with that. Yeah. We're not looking to hike your price up. We know that there's a recession. Oh, sorry. Have they declared recession? Or is it just...
They've been very clear about it not being a recession, even though it looks like a duck and quacks like a duck. And
yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, but anyway, just being mindful of that stuff, right? I think that's important. It's not always just about extracting maximum value. And people can disagree with that. That's fine. I mean, that's just me and you, how we personally feel. We're not trying to extract more money from our indie makers. I think that's fair.
Yeah. And we've never, this is the first time we ever raised our prices.
Yeah.
Like the pricing we set from day one of launch, when we didn't know, we had modeling, and modeling is basically just guessing into the future.
Yeah.
Like we didn't have actual data to back up, okay, this is what our margin is at this price point. This is what our margin is at this price point. So it made sense for us to do an adjustment. And on higher plans, it does, like as you get into the tens of millions or hundreds of millions of page views a month, the pricing does increase substantial. It is not a slight increase on those plans, but those plans also have ridiculous volume. Like it can't be a slight increase on a plan doing like 100 million page views, right?
Yeah, those ones.
There's just so much volume there.
Yeah, processing it and everything else that goes on behind the scenes with that, and we run a kind of infinitely scalable infrastructure. Because and everyone's go, oh, you could run it on this and an EC2 or blah blah blah, and it'd be cheaper.
$5 DigitalOcean droplet.
Well, yeah, and then you say to them, okay, well, who's going to be managing that? Who's going to be monitoring that 24/7? Fathom has the best infrastructure in the industry, and that's because it's all managed and serverless. Who's going to monitor the EC2s?
Yeah,
I'm not. I mean, dude, I was in the UK enjoying myself. Never once did I have a server issue. Yeah. I'm not going to spend my life getting notifications about servers. No way.
You don't want a pager? Like an actual pager you wear on your belt clip?
That is actually, honestly, that's an indie maker reaction though. Oh, you can just put it on a DigitalOcean droplet. Oh, no, we can't. Our customers use us and they want real stats. They're not going to, I wouldn't tolerate that. I mean, that's what you use if you don't care about your stats, and that's fine.
So I guess one thing that's important, I think, to discuss, because I don't know if we've talked about this, but people, and it isn't even very many people, but people, and a lot of times it's not even customers, it's people who aren't customers. But how would you answer if folks who are like, well, why are analytics more expensive than hosting?
Oh, easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it depends what you're hosting, right? If you're doing more stuff with your website, the costs will go up. Like if you're hosting an application, that's more expensive than hosting. And this gets mixed actually, because websites and applications cross over. But imagine a static website. I am literally serving you some assets and an HTML file, right? Bandwidth and storage. With analytics, you're actually processing it, storing it, you're running queries on it, trying to roll it up and various other things. You're processing that data. And the more data you add, the more CPU you need. It costs more to do. And analyzing data versus serving static files. And actually, it's interesting. You think about something like WordPress hosting. If you go and look at something like WP Engine, you go and look at their pricing. I think their pricing is good because they're doing a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And like static sites are really cheap. I mean, look how much it is to serve our website. It's pennies. Maybe not pennies, but it's not expensive at all. Chuck it in. I think we're actually on an EC2 behind a CDN. But what the plan will be is moving to like S3 or something and serving it through a CDN. Cheap as chips.
Yeah.
There's no background auto stats. There's no expensive queries all time and everything else, and processing one by one each page view coming in. It's
in order or not in order.
Yeah, it's a different
backups if something happens to ingest, and then there's backups to. Like I think a lot of times I think that's the main point is that analytics is processing data, right? Like we do it for all time. There are analytics companies, Cloudflare, that only save data for a certain amount of time. I think with Cloudflare it's like a month or something like that. Is like if you don't care about your analytics, then Cloudflare analytics are great, I guess.
Are you still feeling salty about Cloudflare? We're going to air the try. I don't trust Cloudflare. Lots of people don't like it when I speak about Cloudflare. It's really funny because Cloudflare offer you a ton of stuff, right? And a lot of it's free, and they can do this stuff. And whenever I talk about the limitations or bad experiences, people don't like that. They don't like hearing the truth. But that's fine.
But I mean, Cloudflare is great for some things. Like almost all of my domains are registered with Cloudflare.
Yeah.
A lot of the firewall stuff for small sites that I
DDoS protection. Yep.
Yeah, like Cloudflare is great for some things.
Yep.
But not for everything. And I mean, their analytics product, their I guess website analytics product is okay, but it doesn't have. And the only dig I was making was that we offer all time.
Yeah.
So if you want to look back, if you've been a customer for 5 years, then you can look back and analyze that data from across 5 years, and that takes resources
And
on
that
our
probably
end to
won't
do.
change for them, by the way, because I think
Yeah.
they're looking at logs. They keep logs anyway for their product.
Yeah.
And if they're looking at logs, which we would never do, we don't keep logs.
Yeah.
I think the only time we keep logs, I forget what the specifics are, that if we get an attack, then we will keep a log of the attackers, which is in our DPA or whatnot. But that's to keep analytics secure. But we don't keep logs, so we can't do analytics from logs.
Yeah, easy peasy.
Yeah, very different to hosting a static website or what have you.
Yeah, I think it's just worth bringing up because it doesn't come up that often, but people are like, oh, well, I don't understand why analytics is so expensive. It's like, if you ran an analytics company, you would know how much time do you and I spend looking at ways to do certain things to save our customers money so we don't have to charge as much because it's the best cost effective, still while being very robust and redundant and enterprise always. Like,
well, that's just even running the current visitors thing 24/7, you know, compared to serving a static website again. I think too, you've got to look at the company that's doing it. Is this company backed with hundreds of millions of venture capital, and they're doing a kind of low cost / free thing to try and build up their customer base to then IPO, and then down the road they're going to try and extract capital from it and raise prices? I think you've got to look at who is providing the service, I think. So, but yeah, very different. Analytics and everything else. I would look at a few factors actually, but I'll write a blog post on this one day. I just have this. I want to get into the technical side of things too, because I think there's a really interesting discussion to have around the cost of doing analytics at scale.
Cool. I think that's it. Like, I think we just wanted to talk about 3.5 and what's coming next.
Yeah. And then, well, I guess what's coming next is version 4. We're deep into it. Some really cool stuff happening. Things are going to get much faster, more features. I mean, at this point, we can say like entry pages, exit pages, everything that people have been asking for. Crikey, I can't even off the top of my head. Just everything that people have been asking for, API improvements, just more functionality across the board, event properties, dynamic event properties. We've already got dynamic event names, so now you can track goal names with event properties. Lots of good stuff coming in version 4. Basically, it's probably the biggest release we've ever done. Yeah, and we've got some internal goals. I mean, 3.5 took up some time, so we're a little bit behind on the V4, but we're still pushing hard. We're focused 100% on version 4. When that drops, I think it's going to be industry changing. I think some of the stuff we're doing is it's going to blow the industry up in a good way.
Yeah, I love it. So yeah, we are looking forward to next year. And yeah, we can't wait to share all these things with the customers. So yeah, that's all for now. Thanks everybody for listening.